All right, the Eagles and the Cowboys are in a lightning delay, so we're going to do this a little bit sooner. I was going to give you the update on Christian McCaffrey and the reaction to Eagles and Cowboys. We could still react to the game. It's not like it's some kind of late season playoff game right now. We can still react to the fact that Jalen Carter was ejected before a play even happened or a snap even happened in that game. But first on Christian McCaffrey, I'm sure that you've heard at this point that the 49ers added him to their injury report today as a limited participant in practice with a calf issue. And that is all that is publicly available information right now. Of course, we see a collective freak out across the internet. Part of me understands because of last year, obviously, Christian McCaffrey and the Achilles tendonitis popped up right before the start of the regular season, and it would be quite some time before we saw him on the field. But the other half of me is absolutely exasperated because the day and age that we live in is not conducive at all to people just waiting to get the full picture. And what I can tell you is sit back, chill out. You'll get the full picture. There is absolutely no benefit to anyone right now trying to speculate because I could say, I can guarantee you that you're going to speculate wrong on this situation. So chill out, get the full picture. This is a lesson for just about anything in life. And we see it happen a lot with breaking news in sports. People want to be first instead of being right. Let's get the full picture. Kyle Shanahan is probably going to speak on KMBR tomorrow morning. And at that point, you can draw your own conclusions on things. But just for the sake of sanity, I feel that I have to go out and say that. Another thing that I will say is that George Kittle today was asked in his media scrum. This was after practice. He was asked if he's excited to play alongside Christian McCaffrey again. And George Kittle, without skipping a beat, said, yeah, I'm excited to block for Christian again. Nothing awry, nothing funny there. So just take those things for what it's worth and sit back, chill, and we'll get to the bottom of the 49ers final injury report tomorrow. They're done with Wednesday's practice. They're done with Thursday's practice. They play Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to be previewing the opposite side of the ball with this show. So we're going to be talking about 49ers defense against the Seattle Seahawks offense. That is Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks offense. And this is quite possibly the center of intrigue for the 49ers this year. That's why I wrote the big feature on the defense. I've been talking about it a lot today. It's up on the San Francisco Standard. There it is. Violence is coming. Inside the evolution of Robert Saleh's defense, now with Gus Bradley in tow as well on the 49ers coaching staff. I thought that Robert had an awesome quote today that did a good job summarizing my article. Somebody asked him about the young players in this 49ers defense and the experience of 2025 that awaits. And Robert Saleh said, quote, "Put your seatbelt on, enjoy the ride," end quote. He said there will be ups, there will be downs, there will be thrilling moments, there will be growing pains, but ultimately the 49ers needed a youth infusion. They've gotten that youth infusion. Several of the rookies that they drafted are in line for big roles come the start of this season on Sunday. I think that Marquise Siegel is going to start at safety. That's just my prediction, but that's my very educated prediction. I think that you're going to see Upton Stout see significant playing time. Obviously, Michael Williams is going to be a big-time contributor for the 49ers up front. Maybe even quite a bit of CJ West and maybe even some Alfred Collins for the 49ers on the defensive side of the football. So how will this unit take on a Seattle Seahawks offense that's also a new look operation? Clint Kubiak is the offensive coordinator now for Seattle. He comes from the Shanahan tree. He was in San Francisco a couple of years ago, went to New Orleans last year. Clint is although he's a disciple of Kyle Shanahan's, one thing that Robert Saleh today made very clear is that he was a disciple of Gus Bradley's back in Seattle. But then when he left Seattle, when he left Jacksonville, where Gus Bradley was his boss, Robert Saleh blazed his own trail, created his own defense, obviously influenced by what he had learned in the past. But especially after nearly a decade, Robert Saleh has now evolved his unit through his time with the 49ers in stint 1 to the Jets, now back to San Francisco. His defense has evolved into something that's nearly unrecognizable from the initial blueprint. And now he's brought Gus Bradley to work for him, and they're probably bringing back some of the old principles, finding a smart way to mix them in. But the point is that even if Klint Kubiak worked under Kyle Shanahan in the past, doesn't mean that everything that he does is going to be a carbon copy of the 49ers offense. Clint's going to add his own wrinkles. And that's why this week 1 is such an unknown. You're really flying into the fog of war here, because for the first time, Klint Kubiak is going to showcase what he wants with Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, JSN, Kenneth Walker III, Zach Charbonnet, like all these players. There's a lot of good talent on this Seahawks offense. We're going to see what exactly Klint Kubiak has in mind from not just a philosophical standpoint, but from a more specific play calling standpoint. And we are going to be just like the 49ers in watching this game. We're going to say, okay, this is the adjustment that Robert Saleh has to make to stop X. This is the adjustment that Robert Saleh has to make to stop Y. It's not like the 49ers are going to have 5 games of tape on Klint Kubiak's Seahawks ready to go to be able to be firing right out of the gate. That's something that doesn't start happening in this league, especially when you're facing a team with a new staff, until October, sometimes even mid-October, November, right? A little bit later in the season. So I think that week 1 is intriguing. It's often sloppy for that reason, because there is going to be a big guessing game. But we do know, just based on what we saw from Seattle via training camp reports and then via the one drive that their starters played on offense in the preseason, they're going to try to run the football. They have worked to build as athletic of an offensive line as possible. They drafted Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. He's going to be a starting guard for this Seattle team. I think that's a significant addition for them up front, and really does illustrate the direction that this team is trying to head offensively. Gray Zabel is going to be at left guard for Seattle. They just paid Abraham Lucas, won a huge contract for a right tackle, but it was $60 million plus for a starter on that side. And they still have Charles Cross at left tackle, but they've been trying to renovate the offensive line, and they've been trying to hold on to athleticism there, which is something that's related to a Shanahan style offense. The 49ers have obviously prioritized athleticism up front. And what the Seahawks will try to do is they're going to try to pound the rock as the basis, as there's a spine of their offense with Kenneth Walker III and his backup, Zach Charbonnet. 2 physical backs. Kenneth Walker, some of his physical running resume, like his tackle breaking numbers, his elusive score, which it's not necessarily just like dexterous elusiveness. It's not necessarily just finesse. I mean, his elusive score is based on just his general tackle breaking ability. Top shelf for Kenneth Walker III. For a 49ers defense that absolutely tumbled over the last 2 years, especially against the run. I mean, you could take a look at this. I've got this in the article about the defense and Robert Saleh. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger on the screen. But for a defense that has this performance profile over the course of the past few seasons, this goes back to Saleh 1 for the 49ers. Blue is good, red is bad. You can see that the 49ers have sunk all the way down to number 26 total EPA rank, number 29 in run defense rank. For that unit, this is a very, very tough challenge out of the gate. We know that Kubiak is going to run the ball. We know that Kenneth Walker III is an extremely hard guy to bring down. We know that Zach Charbonnet is a load as well. 49ers were number 29 against the run last year. If they're going to turn this around in 2025, they're going to have to show some good early signs of life on Sunday, and it will not be easy against the personnel that Seattle is going to throw out there. So what a fitting test for the 49ers, whose run defense was terrible in 2024, whose run defense has been eroding since 2022, since the start of that 2023 season. What a great test for them right out of bed against Seattle. Now, one thing that Saleh pointed out today, and I think I've been pointing this out throughout the entirety of training camp and preseason, is that this is not going to be the same 49ers defense that takes the field later this season. These guys are going to evolve. They're going to grow. The 49ers will hope that they grow in the positive direction, but there will be maddening moments. There will be exciting moments. And the combination thereof is what's going to tell the story of these games. We do know that Seattle, in a pointed way, is going to test where the 49ers were weakest. So we'll see what immediate improvements Robert Saleh has been able to make. But just on paper, I'm looking at this Seahawks offense, and I see a unit that's capable of balance. JSN is a good receiver, and he's got the feud, the online feud at least, with Deommodore Lenoir. Lenoir's been talking a lot of crap about him, especially saying that he cries for calls and all this and all that. So Demo, I mean, he's pulling a little Richard Sherman. I guess that's topical as the 49ers get ready to play the Seattle Seahawks. We're dealing with Richard's two teams. He also played for Tampa Bay there at the very end. But these are his two favorite teams, the Seahawks and the 49ers. But, that's a battle. And I don't know how often Lenoir and JSN are going to be matched up in this game. I don't know if Renardo Green is going to get more of that assignment. It probably is going to depend on how the Seahawks line this thing up. But that's the top threat that the 49ers are going to have to corral. DK Metcalf is no longer in Seattle. He is now with Pittsburgh. But Cooper Kupp is with the Seahawks. And I get that Cooper Kupp has been a declining asset over the past few years, but he's back home in the state of Washington. He's from Yakima. The reports on Cooper Kupp, I think, have been positive over the course of training camp. He's a great route runner, a record-setting kind of guy in that 2021 season, and he's with another strong-armed quarterback in Sam Darnold. Here's one thing about Sam that the 49ers know very well, and everybody saw last year with Minnesota. He's really, really good off the play action. Okay. Minnesota had a good structure for Sam Darnold to take that next step in his QB rehabilitation efforts. So they played behind a decent offensive line. They were able to run the football effectively enough to call a lot of play action. And Darnold ran the fifth most play action snaps in the entire league last year, and he delivered a highly successful season off of it. So one of the appeals for Seattle was that Darnold moving to their team and playing under Clint Kubiak would essentially be running the same system as he got to run under Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, which was super play action heavy. There is some zone running dependency in the system as well. I mean, these are all related things, right? The Shanahan tree is very influential across the league, but they figured that it would be if not a seamless transition, a smooth transition for Sam Darnold moving into the Seattle offense. So assuming that that's what happens, the 49ers are going to need to be dealing with a quarterback who's operating with a lot of the same principles as the one that they were facing every day in training camp. And that obviously was Brock Purdy. And there's nothing harder to defend in the NFL than balance, which is why Shanahan strives for it, which is why his entire tree strives for it. A few years ago, Sean McVay said, hey, we might be getting a little too pass happy. We need to draft Kyron Williams. We need to add a power run game. We need more balance. That's how you keep defensive lines and edge rushers and aggressive defensive tackles on their heels. That's how you keep defenses guessing. It's how you stay a step ahead in this league. You've got to be balanced between the run and the pass. And the question is Seattle ready to be balanced? I think that they are. I think that this could be a formidable offense for the Seahawks this year. People are saying this in the comment section a lot, and I tend to agree. A lot of people are saying this might be the toughest game of the year for the 49ers. They don't have, on paper, that hard of a schedule. But this one, right, because we broke down the Seahawks defense yesterday. These guys, I think, will have a strong shot at being a top 5 unit this year. They're number 6 down the stretch last season. They think they could be the top unit if you ask Jaron Reed. People are skeptical of that, and you should be, because being the top unit in football is really hard. But I think we can all agree that the Seahawks are going to be good defensively. I think we can all agree that the 49ers are a bit of a wild card defensively. So by extension of that analysis, now who are the 49ers playing? Well, they're playing a team in Seattle offensively who also lines up to be a bit of a wild card, but is loaded with some intriguing talent. My big question is, how much are they going to get out of Cooper Kupp this year, the Seattle Seahawks? Can he be a legitimate number 2? They've also got Torrey Horton as a wide receiver on this team. That's going to be opposite of JSN, who has been around now for 2 seasons, who has established himself, I think, as the highest upside guy in that room. So that's who the 49ers really have to worry about. But how much of a complementary effect will the Seahawks get without DK Metcalf in there? That's going to really determine whether or not this offense is truly explosive, can truly win in a potential shootout. Now, they may not need to win in a shootout. Maybe the Seahawks defense will be special, but we just don't know all of this stuff entering week 1. And then that offensive line. Whenever you hear athletic offensive line, and that's what Shanahan was saying about the Seahawks, that's what Robert Saleh was saying about Seattle, and they've added Gray Zabel into the mix. And obviously, he was one of our big-time athleticism guys up front when we were scouting this 2025 draft class. But whenever you hear people talking about an athletic offensive line, 49ers fans should be conditioned for this. You wonder, how good is the anchor going to be? How good will they be in pass protection? Because we know that the Seahawks have done a lot of what San Francisco's done and tried to build their front for run blocking success. But are they going to be able to anchor against the Nick Bosa? I mean, Bosa has dominated Charles Cross essentially every single time that the 49ers and the Seahawks have played, and Cross has lined up a tackle and Bosa has been across from him. Last year, Bosa was dominating the game at Levi's that Seattle ended up winning. It wasn't a coincidence that the 49ers were ahead when Bosa got hurt, and the Seahawks came back and won after Bosa exited the game. The Seahawks were at like 4.1 yards per play with Bosa in there last year, and they ballooned up to like 8.7 yards per play after Bosa got hurt. So that very, very clearly was the delineating factor in the second 49ers Seahawks matchup. The way to beat the 49ers last year was just to run on them, because then you neutralize the pass rush and they couldn't do anything else. So it's always going to come back to that. How successful, how efficient will Seattle be running? How much of a stride, how many strides the 49ers take in their run defense now under Robert Saleh with all these rookies on the team? Because that battle will determine whether or not the 49ers can rush the passer with any regularity. And if they can, well, I'm fascinated to see, can Charles Cross actually block Nick Bosa this time? Past results have indicated that that's not a good matchup for Seattle. Gray Zabel, how's he going to be working his first time in NFL pass protection, at least in a regular season setting? Now, the 49ers are going to be starting new guys on the inside too. Kalia Davis set to make his first career start. So it's not like they've got grizzled veterans at defensive tackle. CJ West is going to get some playing time for the 49ers. Jordan Elliott, who's not much of a pass rusher, is going to be in there. So maybe this is going to be inexperience on the inside with somebody like Gray Zabel in there. But the 49ers will have a much, much easier time with those pass rushing matchups and their pass rushing moves if they can stop the run and be on a good platform to actually get after the quarterback. I think that a player that we can talk about as an X factor on the defensive side of the football for the 49ers, if they can stop the run, is Bryce Huff. That's if they can stop the run. If they can't, then he's not going to be a factor in this game. But if you can get Seattle into second down, third down, pass situations and long situations, then you wonder what will Huff look like coming off the edge against an Abraham Lucas or against the Charles Cross. We'll see how the 49ers line it up, and what will that bookend with Nick Bosa be able to produce for the 49ers. You know who else is on this Seattle team is Eric Salbert, the tight end who was with San Francisco last year. They replaced him with Luke Farrell. Salbert is now with Seattle. So you've got two guys, ex-49ers in different years. Salbert was a 2024 tight end. Sam Darnold was a 2023 QB. Those are the two 49ers players helping implement Kubiak's system with the Seahawks. I think it's clear, at least as clear as it can be, entering the regular season without any games under our belt. But it's clear that Seattle has a defense that's ahead of its offense. Last year, the defense was number 10 overall, number 6 over the final 8 games. Offense was mediocre, finished at number 18. Now, there's a reason why they jettisoned Geno Smith. He wasn't doing it for him. I mean, Geno was a middle of the pack quarterback leading a middle of the pack offense. If the Seahawks want to get back to actual playoff contention or back to the actual glory days of the Legion of Boom and Russell Wilson, then they're going to need a quarterback that's better than mediocre. And Geno Smith has been a portrait to mediocrity over the course of the past few seasons. So they made the move. They shipped Geno Smith down to Las Vegas. They brought Sam Darnold in on a short-term deal. And Darnold was good enough to lead Minnesota to that big finish last year. And then obviously it didn't go well in the playoffs. I will say that he's not at Purdy's level. I think that's very, very apparent. Darnold last year, I think, was a number 14 or so QBR quarterback. And then the wheels did come off during the postseason in that loss to the Rams. He also had Justin Jefferson last year. He had weapons on that Minnesota offense. He does have weapons here with Seattle, although they're cut from a different cloth. It's going to be more of a run-heavy attack, and it just so happens to be challenging the 49ers' biggest pressure point. Mike texted me saying that it looks like they might restart this game in about 30 minutes, 11:30 Eastern time, which right now it's 10 o'clock Eastern time in Philadelphia. Such an East Coast thing. Thunderstorms delaying a game, but I guess it is September 4th. It's not an issue that you'd have later in the season once it cools off. But thunderstorms in that Philadelphia area have us doing this show a little bit earlier. You know what else I said the other day? I talked about an X factor on the 49ers defense and Bryce Huff. The X factor on the 49ers offense, Christian McCaffrey. And I know that people are in this big holding pattern right now. I know that some are prematurely freaking out. Exhale. It'll be fine. We'll find out about Christian McCaffrey probably tomorrow. And I can tell you through experience that the fact that you haven't heard anything different as of right now is something you could probably take as a good sign. Trying to find the right words to use here. I think that chilling out is the best course of action in any situation as it pertains to the NFL news cycle. I know that's going to be hard for a lot of people to do because of fantasy team PTSD and just 49ers fandom PTSD from last year with Christian McCaffrey, but it's often prudent to reserve judgment on an incident for when you actually have the story of what happened, instead of just one little injury report that said that Christian McCaffrey was limited at practice today with a calf issue. So actually let some facts come in, and I'm here saying chill out. We'll reconvene about this tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll help you pass some of the time over the course of this delay. Eagles-Cowboys. My goodness. I was joking, and I don't know if it was all that much of a joke early on after the first few plays of this game, where the Eagles trying to set the world record for a Super Bowl hangover. Jalen Carter looked like he was trying to spit on Dak Prescott, and he was ejected before there was a single snap from scrimmage even played in this game. It looked like there was a bad injury on special teams to the fullback for the Eagles on the opening kickoff, and then the Cowboys marched right down the field and scored against the Jalen Carter-less defense. And then the Eagles turned around, and I don't think they've punted yet against the Micah Parsons-less Cowboys defense. So back and forth they go. I think the score is 24-20 now. There's still, about a third of the game left to play. They're in the midst of the third quarter with that lightning delay, and I think that it's good that you've got some entertainment here. We can talk and we can answer some questions all the way up until the Eagles and the Cowboys resume playing. I'm going to open up the Q&A. Let's go there. Remember, chill out on CMC, ask good questions, and you will be rewarded. By the way, we got to thank our sponsor for this show, and that is Chubbies. Are you ready for some football? If you're not, Chubbies is ready to help you with their NFL collection. Whether you're tailgating, grilling, or riding the highs and lows of the game from your couch, Chubbies is the officially licensed NFL gear to keep you looking like the ultimate fanatic. With bold designs featuring your favorite NFL teams, Chubbies game day gear isn't just comfortable, it's a statement. Rep your team's logos in a wildly comfortable polos, wave-making swim trunks, and gym-ready mesh shorts. Yeah, you heard that right. Swim trunks with your favorite NFL team's logo on them. All the comfort and swagger you need to take on every touchdown dance, chest bump, or dramatic fourth quarter meltdown. If you're not a jersey guy, this is an elite alternative. If you are a jersey fanatic, something tells me that you'll love their NFL collection, because when you're invested in the game, your outfit should be too. So for a limited time, use our exclusive code Lombardi for $10 off at chubbiesshorts.com/Lombardi. Again, chubbiesshorts.com/Lombardi. $10 off. That includes the NFL collection. Let the thighs out and let the good times roll. Folks, for a limited time, our friends at Chubbies are giving our listeners $10 with the promo code Lombardi at chubbiesshorts.com/Lombardi. That's $10 off your order with the promo code Lombardi, and that includes the NFL collection. Support our show and tell them we sent you. Express yourself and level up your game day wardrobe with Chubbies. Boom. Christopher says that he's never seen a player get ejected before the start of the game. I have. There was a receiver named Jamal Rashad Patterson. This was in college. Stanford was about to play Cal, and he got in a fight before the game started, and he got ejected before the game started. Richard Sherman was on that team. And I think Richard Sherman the Stanford just ended up killing Cal in that game, and Richard Sherman had a quote after that said that the punch was just symbolic of what was to happen during the game. We punched him in the mouth before the game, and then we punched him in the mouth several more times during the game, something like that. Today's ejection of Jalen Carter did not happen before the game. It happened before the first play from scrimmage. It happened right after the opening kickoff. Who do I think will be the starting safeties? Marquise Siegel and Jason Pinnock are going to be the starting safeties. That is what I believe is going to be the case on Sunday. How many carries do I think Robinson will have on Sunday? Ballpark. Well, assuming that Christian McCaffrey is going to play, I think that you see 6 to 7 carries for Brian Robinson Jr. Corey is glad that they got, regardless of Christian McCaffrey's health, it's good to have a number 2 that's as good as Brian Robinson Jr. Ended up being a very economical trade for the 49ers, and I'm sure that they're resting easier right now with him on the roster. I understand it gives you PTSD. I'm just here to calm you down. I'm doing my best, okay? If you choose not to be calmed down by it, I get it. There are parallels because Christian McCaffrey was ruled out before the season opener last year, but I'm doing my best to allow you to exhale. You don't have to listen to me. Here's the thing that, in this modern era, we never wait for the full story to come out because everybody has to just get information out. Transport yourself back to 1997. If somebody lands on the injury report after practice and the coach is not speaking until the next day, because the information is not coming out immediately after practice, nobody really knows about the injury report until the next day when the coach has had a chance to add context and say, oh, the guy's fine. It was just something minor, right? So this whole roller coaster would have been completely avoided in the past. But now, because that information, like the little breadcrumb of information comes out first without any context, everybody has to write articles and react to that information. And then when the coach comes out the next day, if he says, oh, it was just minor, everything's fine, all this energy has been wasted. And so this could go in either direction. If a player lands on the injury report and is totally fine, or if a player lands on the injury report and has a severe injury, either way, you're going to find out with context, with certainty the next day, right? It's not going to change reality to worry about something that you don't know now. But this whole demand for now, I need this information now when it's just not out there. So instead, you're going to run the risk of misinterpreting the tiny breadcrumb of information that is out there. I mean, it's enough to drive people insane. I think it's why social media isn't good for people. So that's why I say chill out. Like take the old fashioned approach here. And if you want to trust me, you can. I think that it's going to end up making you much, much happier. And just wait and see tomorrow on all of this and move on from there. The game is going to be resuming in 25 minutes. So yes, they're going to get going again at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. It's going to be 11:30 on the East Coast when the third quarter resumes of Eagles-Cowboys, which means they're not going to get done until well after midnight. Hopefully there are no more thunderstorms, but the Eagles and the Cowboys just wearing each other out here in the season opener on NBC. It shouldn't always be about drama, right? Sometimes we should just worry about truth. It shouldn't be about drama and speed. It should be about actual truth. Just like let a situation play out before running around like chickens with our heads cut off. I think that's the smart way to approach things. Mo says, time for Robinson to shine. CMC should not be taking all the snaps, even if he is fully healthy. They should be a 1-2 punch. I think the 49ers have that general plan in mind this year, just because of how good Brian Robinson Jr. has been in short yardage over the course of his career. So I think that you're onto something there. And I think that, again, what you've said here, even if Christian McCaffrey is fully healthy, they're happy to have Brian Robinson Jr. That is very, very true. Thank you again for another super chat. Which side of the ball will have to make a bigger presence to win on Sunday? Well, I think you got to play complementary football. Both sides of the football are going to have to come through for a win. This is not going to be an easy game. I'm not surprised that the 49ers are favored because I think reputation sets a lot of these lines. But analytically, Seattle, I think, might have an edge in this game. Because we know Seattle's defense at some level is a proven commodity at a level that the 49ers defense isn't, just because of all the youth that is being infused in that team. Plus, the 49ers sucked last year defensively. They weren't good. Finished number 26 in the EPA chart. So the 49ers are coming into this with a defense that really needs to prove itself after a bad year. The Seahawks are building off of a very, very strong defensive finish in 2024. So that side of the ball, edge Seattle. Then you say, okay, we know that Brock Purdy is better than Sam Darnold. That's really important. That's probably the biggest contributor to the 49ers being favored by 2.5 points in this game because they've got the better quarterback. But it's not just about that. It's about, okay, where's the 49ers receiver room? We know that Jordan Watkins was back at practice today, so it's looking much better than it did just a few days ago. But where's this offense as a whole versus what can Seattle's offense do in this game with a new quarterback, with a new offensive coordinator, with Cooper Kupp now aboard? And it's not Seattle's offense against the 49ers offense, which I think that a lot of times the fans are going to try to prognosticate these games, and the media does it a lot too. They just say, okay, I like this quarterback better than that quarterback. The two quarterbacks don't play each other. It's not Brock Purdy against Sam Darnold. It's Brock Purdy against what could be a top 5 Seattle defense. And it's Sam Darnold against a young 49ers defense that we know will have growing pains. So if you look at those two matchups together, plus special teams, are going to determine this game, right? And I think Seattle has the advantage on paper there. So for the 49ers to win, at least one of their phases is going to have to go above and beyond the ordinary. And I think we all know that Brock Purdy is very capable of going above and beyond the ordinary. I think we all know that Christian McCaffrey is very capable of going above and beyond the ordinary. I think that It's something that has to be executed, though, on game day. And the 49ers, in this situation, coming in on Sunday, have a chance to prove what kind of team they can be in 2025. They can start that whole in-season maturation process with a big win against the Seahawks, but it is not going to come easy. All right, there's your update. Game is resuming in about 20 minutes, so that gives me a chance to take a little bit of a break. Enjoy the rest of the season opener. We will talk to you very soon.